What is up, everybody? We have an episode of Mythbusting and Q&A coming up. I love doing Q&As as always, so I really appreciate the people who left questions on the sticker. And I have a couple myths and I wanted to expand on a couple topics that I posted on this week on the Instagram. Before I get into things, as always, make sure you subscribe and leave a like if you are loving the YouTube content. Need to get back on the horse with this stuff and stay consistent because it will pay huge dividends in the long run. Anyways, let's get into it. So the big myth from this week from the Instagram was deep tier plyos. Now let's give you a little bit of information on what the actual heck a deep tier plyo is. Now this is something that I've only seen come up recently, but I think it's been a thing for at least a year or so. And you do see those old, what is the guy's name? Adam Pachula, like one of the old NFL players who would do reactive, deep split squat, that sort of thing. Anyways, there's supposed to be a sort of multi-tool for a good starting point and then a really good like athletic expansion tool where we're making people more versatile in a wider range of positions. And then because of the deep tiered nature, they make it hard to have really big ground reaction forces and really big eccentric loads so beginners can do them. Okay, so it's like the opposite end of a depth drop where instead of having this huge landing force, we have nice little soft ones that can be repeated for a long time. In theory, it makes a lot of sense, except it doesn't. So, like being beginner friendly, the definition of beginner is being bent so much, right? So someone who is new to the gym and new to plyometrics likely is going to find it quite hard to be in a split squat position. I'm just going to use the split squat example, all right? The split squats are hard. Bulgarians, well known as like the hardest exercise you can do. Why are we pretending that's a good starting point, adding really long length, a ton of eccentric contractions, still having really high amounts of tendon compression, and then packaging that as a friendly little starter bundle for your plyometric journey? It doesn't make sense, okay? All three of those are going to make it extremely hard on the body, okay? Those first two, long lengths and eccentric contractions, and I might just package in the tendon compression, is like the soreness and joint pain nightmare, okay? We are giving long length eccentric contractions 100 plus times in a session to a beginner who doesn't have any sort of peripheral adaptations yet. They are going to be generationally sore after a workout with a high volume of deep tier plyometrics. I haven't deep dived into what the general exercise prescription is because I don't even want to give thought to this stuff, all right? It makes no sense, and it is just as made up as the train like an athlete rubbish, all right? We're doing it because it looks cool. We're doing it because it sounds cool, and we're doing it because the people who market it are well regarded, all right? These people should have high standards for themselves and for the things they're promoting, right? This is just done because it looks cool and they think it makes sense, right? If I'm doing this cool sort of rhythmic jumping and maybe I'm adding in some little changes of direction and some flow, it translates. How is it translating, right? We're in no man's land where it's not high enough impact to really help with stiffness and athleticism, and it's not heavy enough to create strength. That's what we want out of plyometrics. If you're doing plyometrics for a different reason, other than as a return run introduction, which again, someone who's injured probably can't do a split squat. It just doesn't make sense, all right? This is what you have to understand. Normal plyometric, deep tier plyometric, normal plyometric, true plyo, very fast ground contact times, very high rates of eccentric force development, okay? Why is this good? This is good because the body has to work hard to coordinate and fire the muscle at a really fast rate, okay? That's why plyos are good for performance. Let's just talk it from that standpoint right now. Deep tier plyo, slow, rates of eccentric rate of force development. We've just taken away both the things that make plyos good and also made it more aggravating, okay? Tell me how that makes sense. Guys, if you want to make players more beginner friendly, simply add assistance, okay? The best entry point for plyometrics is pogo jumps and using a resistance band to assist in the eccentric. I've used this multiple times. I've never had any issues with it. So this week I made a video that wasn't received great. My bad, I thought I was being smart. Didn't quite come off right. I want to explain in a good way. I'm not going to mention any of the things I said in that video, but I'm going to try and explain what I said poorly well, okay? So as you age, you will have increased rates of muscle breakdown and you'll have increased rates in decline of muscle function and like mobility, okay? Now, in my eyes, I feel that 95% of that is preventable. A lot of it is, there's also a portion of it that is not preventable, right? Because of hormones, because of age, because your body gets worse at replacing and regenerating and repairing, you just can't quite keep up. People overstate that though, okay? There are so many examples of elderly staying fit through their whole life and achieving incredible things at an old age. The fact that that is an outlier isn't because it is incredibly difficult to do that when you're old. It's an outlier because people stop exercising far too quickly. And that's what I want people to understand, is that if you keep exercising, you keep working hard, and you really take agency and you really care about your health, your decline will be so much incredibly slower, okay? This comes from a good place in my heart. I may say it in an aggressive way, but I want people to understand that no matter what age you are, no matter what activity levels you are, you can turn it around and make a significant positive change within months, okay? If you consistently exercise, your body has no reason to deteriorate. It has every reason to maintain fitness. Your body is made to hold on to important things, make your fitness, make your muscle, make your bone, make your brain important by staying active so that your body does everything to hold on to it. If you do not, it has no reason to hold on to it, and that is why you see such a rapid decline in mobility and function as you get older. That is aging to me, okay? That is why I said what I said, is because in my eyes, this significant decline is so much more attributable to sedentary lifestyle than actual increase in age, okay? Like I said, there is an element, all right? Decline in function, decline in cognition comes from getting older, but it is far more associated with sedentary lifestyle. We have so much research on this stuff now that I think is really just needs to become forefront. It needs to be adopted, right? I'll leave it there for that part. Now I had one more topic, the oblique and tendons are the same thing. Again, I thought I was being pretty smart and slick with this one. I came up with this on the top of my head. And it comes back to the fact that tendons are what the experts call viscoelastic. So that means the viscosity, the thickness of the tendon changes. There's a nice spectrum of viscosity that your tendon can behave in. Now, I think I made a little bit of a whoopsie and I said a lot of it was force reliant. It's sort of a little bit force, but more so time, but then the time is connected to force, yada, yada, yada. Your tendon, the longer it holds a contraction or it holds force, it relaxes and it uncrimps. And as it uncrimps, it starts to actually stimulate a lot of the tendon cells and a lot of the little connective bits and bobs. In short contractions, the tendon doesn't have time to relax, uncrimp, and actually act as a squishy thing. It just goes bang and contracts as you jump, as you run, okay? That's why like humans can run and can be athletic, is because tendons act as springs under high forces, but we are also mobile because tendons can relax and allow for nice mobility. I'm not sure there's much else to it, but I just thought I'd quickly touch on it if anyone didn't really get what I was saying. Let's get on to the Q&A. We got 4 questions from 3 people because Emily asked 2. Thank you, Emily. Question number 1, what is my ultimate goal for sporting activities? Now, that sounds like you're asking me personally and not for like career-wise. I'm washed. I will never be good enough to be an elite athlete. I like to think I will be elite at lifting and elite at running at some point. Technically, I think by body weight, I am elite. Squat, bench, dead. Depends who you ask. A lot of the Instagram haters would not agree, but a lot of data does. I'm at the top of advanced, close to elite. That's definitely true. I think there's somewhere I just barely scrape in. Point is, I am no longer concerned with like sporting achievements. It's not front of mind. I used to care about it a lot, and really all the changes it doesn't bother me as much. I'm not emotionally connected to it. I really, really, really like it. It makes me feel good. I love being around a team. Team environments are my happy place. I hate being by myself. If I worked a lone job, my mental health would deteriorate rapidly. Let's put it that way. I'm a people person at heart, and so I really just look to improve my ability to work with people. So whether that's in professional team setting or working with more one-on-one clients through in-person, online, and hybrid funnels. Okay. I really that's my goal, is to work with people in some capacity. I do have populations that I enjoy working with more. Everyone has preferences. There's no point pretending that's not the case. But of course, being so early in my career, I talked to Chris about this today. I cannot pick and choose. I must be flexible and amazing with everyone, which of course I care about a lot and I do my best to do. Next question. If I could pick 5 exercises to do for the rest of my life, what would they be? This question is from my girlfriend, Emily. Thank you for asking this question. If I could pick 5, I think I've done a TikTok on this before. I would pick chart bar deadlift, bench press, cable row, hammy curl. Ooh, it would be hard to pick the 5th. It would either be hip thrust or overhead press. So if you held me at gunpoint, I think I'd say overhead press. And hear me out, trap bar and hammy hits everything. It hits things at differing qualities. I can accept that, but it hits everything. Bench and cable row hit everything except shoulders. Again, hit it to varying qualities, but it hits everything. So shoulder press would be the only thing missing. Of course, there's no core, but we got to pick something. Something's got to give. So those are my 5 exercises that I would pick if I had to, and I couldn't do another single exercise for the rest of my life. Like I explained, they just cover all the bases. We got calves missing and abs missing, but you get a really good amount of core bracing from the deadlift. So I think you're going to have to, I don't know, drop your top 5 exercises in the comments and we can compare. What food should I eat before a game to perform at my best? Another question from Emily. Before a game, you have to balance digestion and feeling with actually getting the fuel in you need. Now, this can vary hugely in between people. I am known to have a fairly sensitive stomach, but not too bad. Sometimes I can get away with it, sometimes I can't. Very tolerant of carbs. But I think I would say I get weighed down easily with fats and protein. So I am always going to prefer just a bag of lollies and a meal very far away and then just sugar for the rest of the day. I think that's a solid approach. You can do a lot better. So let's say you have a late afternoon game, because that gives you would normally need 2 meals to sustain yourself over the day. You could have a normal, potentially heartier breakfast. Maybe you actually cook something up like, can't be too fatty. So maybe we would do like turkey bacon, some English muffins, a little bit of fats like with avocado or something, just a light serving. And then whatever else your heart desires. Maybe you have some OJ, that's a good one. So that could be a solid like breakfast meal, is lean protein, okay, like good carbs, doesn't have to be super high GI or super low, just get some good carbs in, high volume, and then a tiny bit of fat. That's your breakfast, that's your furthest meal. Your next closest meal should be very light on. It should be very little bit of protein and the rest very nice light carbs. You don't want to be ingesting stuff with a lot of fiber. You want to be ingesting things that are nice and light in the stomach. You may have stuff that works for you, but a good option is always going to be rice, and then potentially you could just have chicken and rice with some sauce on top, some sugary sauce like barbecue, tomato, something like that can provide a good option. I'm giving really exact advice. Just know this cannot be personalized advice. I'm only providing an example. Then right before the game, lollies. Okay, don't F around with trying to get like this really special carb in. Lollies, make sure you've had it before and it doesn't upset your gut. You're good to go. 30 minutes beforehand and right as you start is when you can have sugar and some more sugar. Potentially adding in liquids right at that last little bit to sort of, if that makes sense. All right. So if someone wants to punch harder and move faster, what muscles do they avoid training? This is a very interesting question because a lot of people want to focus on what to train, what to not train. Okay. So what do we want to avoid when we're trying to get faster? I'll just say faster. I acknowledge your question, but let's just say faster, okay? We want to avoid really high fatigue, slow exercises. Now, this isn't necessarily exercise specific, but it is general. It's just general, okay? We want to avoid any sort of exercise prescription that has us going too past or extremely close to failure, all right? So I like to define it as you want to do a 5 reps with a 7 or 8 rep max is a really good way to get a good strength stimulus while keeping fresh. You want to do 5 reps with a 7 or 8 rep max. Why is that? Because it means you get around 2 stimulating reps and 3 left in the tank, okay? While if we really want to get technical, all 5 of those reps can still be stimulating for strength, not necessarily for hypertrophy, but that may be a bit of a faux pas to some people where, it has to be stimulating to hypertrophy to be stimulating for strength. Blur the lines a little bit there and say that a 5 reps with 7 or 8 rep max load is going to be effective, okay? Specific muscles to avoid training. That's a good one. Now, I would honestly say there aren't any for punching. Yeah, I just can't see that there's any you want to avoid. But a good way to think about it is actually that when you're trying to get better at punching harder and faster, you want a really strong core. People love to say that force comes from the floor, and that's true, but it also has to go through your core. And you can add more force from your core because it's moving slow enough to push and really contract and add force. Whereas as it comes up and down that kinetic chain, we're just transmitting, we're not generating, okay? So really focus on strengthening your core. That's something I've wanted to focus on more because, for your contact sports, you want to be able to fend off. Having a rock solid core is far more valuable than you think for punching and upper body power movements, okay? Strong core, solid, fast limbs, that's going to do a lot of the work for you. That is all of our questions and all of the myth busting for this episode. As I always say, I love doing these episodes. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube and you follow me on Instagram, drop a question, literally just to help me think and give me stuff to talk about. I hate how desperate this sounds, but I just really appreciate the people who ask questions. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Evan Hill Trains YouTube right here and drop a like if you like this video. I do want to quickly shout out, I have added a link in my Instagram bio to my free training guide, which touches on a lot of these sorts of topics, the basics, the bottom mechanisms that inform and can really help you make your training better without needing help from other people, okay? So if you're interested in that, click the link in my Instagram bio, and all you have to do is just give me an email so I can send it to you. Thank you.